Hello, and welcome to the Power of We podcast. I am your host, Nisa Brown Springman, and the founder of Ignite Your Life. Ignite is a women's holistic health, fitness, and lifestyle community. And for the past 17 years, I have had the honor, privilege, and blessing of being the recipient of the wisdom, strength, knowledge, encouragement, and inspiration that comes from being part of this incredible community. And I want you in on that. In Ignite, this is what we call the power of we. The power of we is the philosophy that Ignite is built upon, which is that two is better than one, and that God created us for community and to do life together. In this podcast, I will have conversations with a wide range of women over a wide range of topics that will provide you with wisdom, knowledge, inspiration, and encouragement. So get ready to be empowered, y'all, because here we go. Hello, and welcome to the Power of We podcast. I have a very special friend within my very own tight Power of We circle that I'm going to introduce you to, and we're going to learn from her today. And as a matter of fact, her name was mentioned in our previous podcast, episode 7, because she was my introduction to Austen Brower, who taught us all about gratitude and his 365-day gratitude project. So here we are with Amy Younkman, my dear friend, who is also an Ignite leader in Austin. And we were just discussing how long we've known each other. And we really think it's probably been a span of maybe 18-ish years, maybe give or take some. But we can't really remember how long because we feel like we've been friends forever. She's that kind of person. But Amy, and I'm going to give you the microphone very soon, Amy, but Amy has been a leader with us in Austin for almost 15 years. Amy, your birthday is coming. Your Ignite anniversary is coming up on May the 25th.
All right.
15 years. I know, that's incredible. And so anyway, what I love so many things about Amy, but Amy, just like our entire Ignite team, she oozes with passion, and very often we'll have a conversation that we're like, just going to be 5 minutes, and it turns out to be an hour because we start talking about all these different exercise, lifestyle, holistic living things, yoga, fitness, nature, family. I mean, the conversation just goes on and on and on. And it's Amy's passion to me. And she's a lifelong learner that is so appealing and attractive. And she just is a wise friend. And so there are going to be many other podcasts that we have with Amy, except this one's going to be based on Ayurveda, the Ayurvedic lifestyle, and what it is, how we can live that way, and why it's important. So Amy's going to tell us all about that because that's really important. I think something that we can all take away a lot of knowledge and information from that can improve our health and wellness and overall well-being. So Amy, I'm going to give you the microphone and let you talk all about all of your knowledge. But first, tell us a little bit about, I just mentioned you're from Austin, but you're not originally from Austin. But if you could please share where you're originally from, what you consider yourself a born again, and tell us about your husband and your children and your grandchildren.
Well, thanks, Nisa. That's correct. I'm not originally from Texas, but I've been here long enough to call myself a Texan. So originally from the Chicago area, my family still lives up there. I have 2 sisters, 2 brothers. Grew up in that area, went to school in Ohio, and ended up in Texas right out of college. Just wanted to turn the lights off in the Midwest and head to Texas. So landed in Dallas, was there for a year, came to Austin, met my wonderful husband, Steve, kind of in transit. Right before I left, we ended up marrying 41 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long. He too graduated from Miami. We didn't know each other in school, but connected after. And then we have had 3 beautiful children together. Oldest one being, we've got a 33, 29, and 28-year-old. So they are blossoming adults and finding their way in adulthood. And then I've got 2 darling grandsons through our daughter Maggie, and that's Bo and Coulter, and they're 3 and 1, about to turn 4.
Busy, busy boys.
Busy, busy boys, all boy, all the way, but the joy of my life. So, it brings the whole circle of life full circle, right? Especially when you see your daughter as a mother. So, this whole thing we're talking about is about cycles of life, and what a joy and an honor to be able to live it and live it through my daughter and grandsons.
Oh, I love that. Well, what I was referring to a while ago is in your Ignite bio, you refer to yourself as a born again Texan. And when I saw that, that cracked me up. And so I know you have pride and joy in having been born and raised in Illinois. However, being a Texan myself, I just happen to love that you consider yourself a born again Texan. So I love that part of your bio. All right. So a little bit about mine and Amy's background. I started Ignite in 2006, and Amy was a member at a country club that I also taught classes at. And Amy, I don't even remember how we started talking about yoga one day, but it was coming on, becoming more of a thing. You got your yoga certification, and I was recognizing that our members, our community needed more. They needed more than just strength and cardio that I was giving them. And I wanted to know a little bit about yoga so I could incorporate it into our classes. And we met together at Westwood Country Club in Austin. And I feel like the first thing you showed me was a cobra. I vividly recall, y'all, this is a hilarious story. Amy had some allergies. If you spend any time in Austin, you're going to be struck by like the cedar bug or mold or all the things, the pollen. And so Amy had just done a neti pot. And so we were both lying on the ground and she was getting me all prepared and ready to show me how to do a delicious cobra pose. And she starts to lift herself up out of it and exhale, and a stream of water from the neti pot just flows straight out of her nose. So that will always be a memory, a hilarious memory for me. And then it wasn't too long after that you became our lead and head yoga instructor leader in Austin, and it's really taken off. What I love about Amy's practice and about how she lives life is she's just so intentional. You are so intentional, and everything you do has meaning to it. It's not just random. You really do try to live in accordance with nature and get us fast-paced people to slow down and breathe and be aware of our surroundings and our seasons. And that's what we're going to talk all about right now. So Amy, I'm going to hand you the microphone and just let you go ahead and start. I will ask questions where I have questions, but please you're our Ayurveda lifestyle expert, so I'm going to hand you the mic over and let you just go for it.
Well, thanks, Nisa.
You're welcome.
That's a loaded inquiry, but I guess I'll start by just saying, yes, I love how we met, and I am a seeker, and I feel like I've always sought knowledge. I became introduced to yoga through the book Autobiography of a Yogi and absolutely fell in love with it and started practicing just as a complement to my sports. Through that, I just continued to learn more and more and more about yoga, and along with the physical postures called asana, there's all this yoga philosophy, which of course we studied when we get certified. I have a 500-hour certification, so I loved the learning part of that and continue to learn. Meanwhile, along the road of learning about yoga, there's this sister science of yoga called Ayurveda. So Ayurveda literally translates to knowledge of life. And so the two go hand in hand, and they're both like 5,000 plus year old traditions, and they're steeped in Vedic wisdom. And a lot of people think yoga is about Hinduism, but it's really not. It did start in India. And so these ancient sages practice these lifestyle practices called Ayurveda. And so they had all this wisdom. And so what we do today is we take this ancient wisdom and we combine it with modern science. And there's quite a few frontiers now in the States who are doing this. People I follow, many of you have heard of Deepak Chopra. He's probably one of the best known, who has come over, and he has this whole center in California. And so he is, from India, and he combined his wisdom. He's an MD with Western medicine. So there's lots to be learned, but it's just fascinating. I always say yoga is like this deep well. You dip your toe in, but you never get to the bottom, because not only it's such a deep well of knowledge, but by the same token, our bodies are different every day. So what we need today was different than what we need yesterday and what we'll need tomorrow. And that's based on our own individual constitution. That's also based on the seasons that we're in, both the seasons weather-wise, it's winter now, seasons of life. I'm in my what's called the Vata stage of life, later stages of life. So Ayurveda can be really, really simple. And I think for today's purposes, we'll keep it really, really simple. But I do want you to know that there's so many layers to it that are so intriguing. But I do think the reason we don't have more knowledge of it in our Western world is sometimes it can be overwhelming to start to delve into it and figure out, understand all of Ayurveda. So for today's purposes and keeping it super simple, so people just get a handle on it. I think what's so cool, and it just totally aligns with Ignite, and what Ignite is all about, is we recognize that in nature there are 5 elements. And so that's air, ether, fire, water, and earth. And all the elements, the 5 elements that are out in nature, are also in us. We are made of those. So we have these same energies in us, which is super cool. So literally, when you think about you are what you eat, you're ingesting these foods that have this energy, and it's becoming part of your body on a cellular level, an energetic level. So these 5 elements are out in nature and they're in us, and they manifest in different ways. So if we're fueled by air and ether, there's 3 doshas. One is called Vata. So Vata energy is the predominant dosha when you've got air and lightness, and you tend to run dry and cool. And then Pitta dosha is fueled by water and fire. So pittas are the ones that have like the fire in their belly, and the people that they've also got the water element in it. And so they tend to be a little more fiery personality, a little more, when they get out of balance, they tend to be more frustrated and maybe even angry. So that's a pitta personality. And then the third dosha, which is a combination of water and earth. So earth is grounding, right? It's really, earthy and grounding. And they tend to be a little more solid in build, and those are the people that don't like change as much. So there's 3 predominant doshas. We're all made up of a combination.
We've got Vata, Pitta, and
Kapha.
Hatha. Okay.
It's actually Kapha, pronounced Kapha.
Kapha. Okay. Perfect.
So we're a combination.
And this reminds me a little bit. I'm sorry, Amy. This reminds me a little bit. We've got Enneagram, right? That like kind of tells us how we lean one way, our core values, we lean this is another version of giving us information about ourselves and our bodies.
It is. So just like the Enneagrams were from the ancient Sufis, well, these are ancient wisdom as well. So these 5 elements, not to complicate it, we're made up of a combination of these, and everybody has a different, what we call blueprint. Everybody's is different. Just like there's no 2 snowflakes alike, there's no 2, your inborn constitution is called your prakriti. So that means you are unique. You are the only one just like you. Yes, you're a combination of these 3 energies in all different ways. And so that's individual to you. So the biggest difference between how we look at, say, Western medicine and Eastern or Ayurvedic approach to life is Western medicine is more about fixing the disease, or when something goes wrong, fixing it, curing a disease, having an illness. Here's how we cure this disease. Whereas the Ayurvedic approach is, all right, this person, this is their inborn constitution called your prakriti, but we're out of balance. We get out of balance all the time, right? So when we're out of balance, that's actually called our vikruti. Ayurveda looks at how do I bring that person back into balance to get back into their inborn constitution. So it's all about bringing you back into homogeneous balance. So in order to do that, we have to understand our own individual blueprint. And that involves the food we eat, the lifestyle we lead, our sleeping patterns, our exercise patterns, how we connect with people. So it's an entire lifestyle focus, as well as, of course, nutrition and what we feed our bodies.
And because this is a very natural, holistic lifestyle, it also varies. I mean, I know our constitution is what it is, but we are constantly changing too. But we are either always a Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, right? That doesn't change.
Correct. And then again, I'm trying to make this simple, even though it's really
Yeah.
not a simple concept. But along with our inborn constitution, the three doshas go along with the seasons of the year. So right now
That was what I was going to ask you.
we're in Vata season. So what is Vata? Cool and crisp and windy and cold and dry, and that's what's going on right now, right? So in winter, we have to act accordingly. So if we have a Vata constitution and we're in the Vata season, well, wow, we need to pay attention because we can get flighty and go off into the ethers pretty quick. So we
And
need
why is that? Because in my mind, it would seem like a Vata would just be all about the Vata season. But am I thinking about that all wrong? Is it just too much of dry and cool?
right. So Vata
Okay.
predominates out in nature right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tend to have a lot of Vata already in you, and then it's exasperated by the time of the year we're in, and even exasperated more so because you're in your Vata stage of life. So along with it goes your time frame. So from 0 to 18 is your kapha stage in life, where you're
Okay.
young, you're a little more solid, you're grounded, you go at a slower pace in life, and you're just a little more stable. Then you got your pitta stage of life, and that's from about 18 to say 50, 55-ish. And that is your, fire in the belly. Those are your career years. You're building your families, your business, your career, whatever it might be. Then we pass into what's called the Vata stage of life, and that is the later stages when our bodies literally tend to get drier and more wrinkles and things slow down metabolically, and it's a different lifestyle change. So we've got the three doshas affecting the seasons of the year, affecting our own internal body, the season of our life, and then of course we've got our inborn constitution. So, what does all that mean? I know it sounds kind of confusing, but what we can take out of that and from that is just trying to live in tune with the seasons. And what does that mean? So, right now we're in Vata season, and it's cold, and we all know it's a lot of this is obvious, but it's knowing it, but then doing something about it. And that's where I feel the difference is. Like, I could tell you this stuff and you'd go, yeah, that makes sense. Sure. I mean, I know I need to eat mindfully. I get it. But do we do it? So here's a perfect example, and I'll tell you something I struggle with. So Ayurvedic principles would be, here we are, we're in winter, we need to eat warmer, heartier food, more grounding food. I mean, that makes common sense, right? But the other thing Ayurveda says is when we eat our food, we really need to sit down, take time without devices, and eat mindfully. I mean, we all struggle with that because who doesn't sit down with a computer, a phone, or something to read, right? If we're by ourselves. And, for me, that's breakfast and lunch. Like dinner, I have no problem. I'm eating with someone usually, but we eat mindfully. And also in Ayurveda, how you prepare the food is super important. So in other words, if I'm preparing food, I need to have the right mindset. When I went through my first 200-hour training at Barsana Dham, the name has since changed, but it's down close to the Salt Lick on the down 1826, beautiful Hindu temple. And the cook, her name was Jo, and she was this amazing cook, and she made this Indian food. And I mean, they would pray over the food before they prepared it and make it. And so they really are invested in this and in being in the right state of mind when you cook. And that really affected me because I know when I was raising my kids, I'd throw dinner together and feel like I had to get it on the table in between activities. And I thought, oh, that is just not the right approach. And, that literally comes through. I was thinking about it when somebody brings you a warm meal, how not only nourishing it is, but how good it tastes because it's made with loving hands and thoughts.
This
And so,
reminds me of a story that I'm sorry, but I so align with this, and I completely, I just think it's spot on, and it's so much easier said than done. But awareness is the first step towards change, and so when you know that this is like, okay, this is why we need to just go a little slower and be intentional and prepare the food lovingly and with good energy. But it reminds me years ago my brother in law, whom I adore, got into a heated debate over eating. I refused to eat chicken that was not free range because I was like, I don't want to eat a chicken that has been cooped up in a little cage this big and they're like pooping on top of one another and they can't move their bodies. Like, the amount of cortisol that chicken is producing and the disease that's in its body because it's stressed out of its mind. I would be ingesting that food and I would be ingesting all of that stress.
right.
And my brother-in-law was like, that might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He said, those chickens don't care. And so we just went back and forth. And I think he was just kind of egging me on just to see how far I would take it and how much I would like dig my heels into the ground. But then one time my dad and stepmom they both smoke and they were stuck somewhere like cooped up in a small room with a bunch of smokers. And they were like, oh my gosh, Nisa was right. This is totally stressful. This is what she was talking about when all those chickens are cooped up. It is very stressful environment. Anyway, I just, I just could not agree with you more and thank you for reminding me of that to slow down a little bit, not just when we're eating our food, but preparing our food when we can. And it's not going to be perfect at all, but just to have that, what you always make me do when I talk to you, you don't make me, just when you talk this way, and which is every time we talk, I just always exhale like, oh, that's right. All right, slow down. And so thank you, because that's what I just did again. I exhaled because you reminded me of how just it's a slower season. And with that, that even translates to the food, like how we prepare our food. So tossing it back to you.
And the other thing going right along with that was slowing down, that I think we're in the season of Vata, we're in the winter season. So we're so conditioned in our culture to think that we kind of go at the same pace throughout the years. Sure, think we get tired because it's the holidays and we do too much and we get worn out. But really, it's the opposite. Our bodies were designed to move slower and be slower. We're designed to get more sleep at this time of the year, just like bears hibernate. We should follow the daylight hours. So wake when the sun comes up and go to bed when the sun goes down. Well, no one does that anymore because we live in this world of ours where everything is conditioned and manufactured but we think we have to always do. But we're literally designed to take more time, have more rest, slow down the pace of life, be more introspective at this time of the year. And then just like we're in our little cocoon, come spring, when we start to evolve into this kapha state, when things get a little moist and there's more moisture in the air and spring is coming upon us, then we start to slowly pick up the pace of life and get just a little bit more energized, eat more cleansing foods, a little lighter foods. And then, of course, we move from the kapha season, which is kind of the heavier, rainy season, and we move into pitta, which is summer and fire. And, then we're on the go and we have longer days and we're just awake for more hours. And so when we live in tune with the seasons, we just flow better. And, we cook in tune with the seasons. I love cookbooks that have it divided by season so that we can, if there's only certain things we make and eat in the winter. And, now we have the produce from all around the world available to us at all times. But, they used to just eat tomatoes in the summer because that's when the tomatoes were ripe. We didn't eat them year round.
Reminds me, Melaine loves watermelon. You can go to Sprouts and get a watermelon from like Argentina. 365
I
days out
know.
of the year. But I told her, I'm like, Melaine or Costco, I was like, I refuse to get you a watermelon from Argentina. Watermelon is for summer. I'm sorry, but that is a summer food. And I just can't, my conscience just can't do that. But let me ask you, I've got two questions for you. One is, can you go through? I know because we have 4 seasons. We have fall, winter, spring, and summer, but we only have three, what do we call them? Doshas. Yeah. So can you go through those? Tell us kind of exactly when those three doshas are.
So
What is
in
the
the
time of
Ayurvedic
year?
season, fall and winter are kind of not lumped together, but they evolve into each other. So, and of course, here in Texas, fall comes quite a bit later.
Yeah.
But in general, in fall, when the days start to get just a little shorter and the wind starts to pick up and it starts to get just a little bit drier, then we evolve into Vata season. So again, it's going to be a little shorter. It's going to come later here in Texas when we're living in Texas, but there's the 3 seasons. There's kind of fall into winter is more Vata, and then Kapha is your springtime when there's more rain and moisture in the air, and Pitta is your summer, your heat. And
Okay.
so,
So I have another question for you. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget, but I'm going to go back to that other question that I was going to ask you before this. So one thing when you were talking about in this season that we're in, the Vata season, the days are shorter, it's colder. We want to be, as you like to say, kind of more cocooned, hibernating, resting more. It is so counterintuitive to it's intuitive because that's the way that days are, but the way that we are wired, and I also, push like, it's the new year, it's time to get after it. And so now I'm kind of thinking, and there's not, that's great, but I'm thinking maybe it's nothing wrong with looking at the whole year and being, like gangbusters and like broadly having some goals, if you will. But I'm wondering if we would be better served kind of breaking it up into 4 quarters, because or into into the 3 seasons that or just because I'm just wondering energetically if that would even make a difference so we don't feel like come January we just have to, kick butt 20 hours out of the day to get those goals working. You know what I mean?
totally. And, that's why I love like the school schedules because we get breaks,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
love to look at the winter time as kind of, I've talked about this in my yoga classes. Imagine yourself in a hammock. And so when you're in this hammock, you're between what's over and what's next. And you're kind of suspended, right? You haven't totally given up on what's over and you're totally not into what's next. You're hanging in this hammock and you're kind of letting everything, I love the word percolate, settle,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of take your time. And then you clean the slate, right? And you do
Mm-hmm.
your ignite process of cleaning the slate, going back and deciding what you want to leave behind, what you want to take forward. But you spend time swinging in this hammock and not having to jump from here to there. And we know it doesn't happen in a day or a week. I mean, it's different for everyone, but allowing yourself a season. We talked about the solstice. The winter solstice is actually, that's been in effect for eons, and that's from the shortest day of the year, December 22nd, to New Year's Day. And it's literally considered this time where we are supposed to kind of stop and take a major pause and really let ourselves be silent and still in preparation for kind of transitioning into a new year, but paying attention. So much of this, Nisa, is paying attention. And I think we make things so much more complicated than they need to be. Like a real key concept, for example, in Ayurveda, when you are out of balance, Ayurveda looks at your digestion, your circulation, and your elimination. And we're like, well, duh, that has to work. But you know what? We make big deals out of everything. Well, think about it. You're feeling a lot better and your digestion, your whole system is better if your digestion, your circulation, and you can eliminate are all working together. So again, going back to our Prakruti, when we started, when we were kids, that's all working, right? It's just when we get
Mm-hmm.
older and we add these layers and we add so
Mm-hmm.
many layers to things. And so I think Ayurveda, a lot of it is about pulling back the layers and realizing that all of that is extra stuff and layers upon us. But deep down at the base layer, our Prakruti, our original blueprint, kind of really coming to terms with what our constitution is, how we live our best life. And that comes about through awareness and, knowledge, self-knowledge, which is what Ayurveda is, the study of the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge of life.
And it really is just a pause. And it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to become Ayurveda experts. We
No.
just have to kind of pause and pay attention and just allow ourselves to just to feel, how are we feeling instead of pushing through always. And sometimes we do have to push through. There are certainly times when we have to, but I think it is just that real pause to do a scan and have a better, to give ourselves a better understanding of how are we, how are we feeling, and well, I don't know. I think so much of it is, and this is what you do such a good job of. You are so intentional, and there's nothing that you do that I feel like is ever rushed or forced.
But
And that is
it
the
wasn't always
opposite of this.
It wasn't always that way, Nisa. I will tell you, I feel like I used to be the queen of multitasking and running around, and I credited myself with doing five things at once and how good I was at that. And then, I kind of hit a wall and said, wow, this isn't working. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, studying yoga and Ayurveda really, really turned it around for me because it made a lot of
Mm-hmm.
sense to me. It just made total sense.
So it makes total sense to me too. And it really is kind of retraining your brain to move in a different and move at a different pace in your life. So what was that defining? Was it parenthood?
No, I think it was, literally going through my yoga studies. I mean, it was life changing for me. It just kind of opened up this whole new perspective and take on life. So, I've always loved physical movement. So, of course, I did yoga as a balance, learned how to breathe in to kind of help balance out the other activities I enjoyed. I enjoy all physical activities, but yoga was the one thing. I always said yoga made me true to myself because I felt like, I could be better at other things. But if you're considered good at yoga by all the postures you could do, I was never a bendy. So I was never one of those who was like doing these amazing back bends. That just never has been in my body type. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was very humbling, but it taught me so much about accepting myself where I am and a lot of self-compassion, which is what I needed. And I got into teaching because I had realized I wished I'd had that as a young person. I would have been a lot healthier if I had had that knowledge in my life. And so I became passionate about not only learning more, but sharing it with others.
Well, and I think it's important to let everybody who's listening know that you are a big runner, you currently do cycle a lot. So you're not this one dimensional, like yoga only. You
Right.
were a big time runner for many, many, many years. You did triathlons. You're a big swimmer. I mean, you've done it all. And so what you're saying is that yoga, once you added that, that really helped kind of balance everything all out
It
for
did.
you.
Yoga, I always said, kept me true to myself and kept me exploring myself. And it really taught me just mindfulness. And there's a big difference between exercising and mindfulness. And so,
Mm-hmm.
age is wisdom. And so, because I've been blessed to live as many years as I have, I just now love practicing mindfulness on the mat. And I bring it into everything I do. And, I really found that through yoga and
Mm-hmm.
Pilates, but mostly yoga.
Well, you're a beautiful example. So let me ask you this question. So I lived in San Diego for 3 years, and they don't have, I always said, they actually do have seasons. San Diego does have seasons, but it's not near as prevalent as like Oklahoma, where I'm living, where we have a legitimate summer, a legitimate fall, a legitimate winter, as I'm looking at snow on the ground right now, and a legitimate spring. So, how would you, and I know we're talking about doshas, not necessarily summer, winter, spring, fall, but they're all connected. How would you communicate the Ayurveda or the Ayurvedic lifestyle to someone who lives in a place that is sunny and feels like summer all the time?
That's a really good question because it does throw you off. I mean, if you've got this
Mm-hmm.
temperate, same throughout the year, then you're not really changing and you're kind of in one zone. Um, but what you do have is you're always going to have the sun rising and setting, and you're always
Mm-hmm.
going to have longer and shorter days, right? And so we were
Mm-hmm.
literally designed. I mean, think about the ancient yogis. They didn't have electricity, so they literally got up when the sun came up and they did sun salutations to greet the day and be thankful for the warmth of the sun. And then the sun goes down and they would do moon salutations and get ready and go to sleep because they didn't have electricity. So, that will always be the case, shorter, longer days. So when we can evolve and kind of live in tune to that, more corresponding to, we don't always wake up when the sun comes up, but I will tell you in the fall, if you can wake up when the sun comes up, I'm blessed that the sun rises, comes up in the east in my yoga studio. I can see it come up, and it is the most magical, wonderful way. And there's proven studies that seeing the sun rays, the oranges and reds in a sunrise, are super, super calming to the nervous system. And you know what it does? It sets your melatonin for the whole day. So you wake up, you see a sunrise, and it literally sets your circadian rhythm and body clock to say about 10 hours later, you're going to be ready to wind down, and the melatonin kicks in, which is incredible. Our bodies
It
have
is
that in them.
so incredible. You
Isn't
and
that
I, this is where
amazing?
you and I can like super geek out because you're like, oh my
I
God,
know.
nature is so cool and God is so cool the way he created all of this to be in sync and in rhythm with one another. And none of it is random.
Nope.
None of it is random.
I
Oh,
know.
that is
And like, why haven't we known this our whole lives? Like, I just found that out a couple years ago, and I'm like, that's amazing to me. That's
yeah,
amazing.
that in and of itself is just a miracle. I mean, and that's just one benefit of seeing the sunrise.
Right.
Just all the other, I just think from a spiritual perspective or vantage point, just seeing something so beautiful first rattle out of the box. First thing you see when your eyes open instead of going to this thing. But, looking at that glorious, majestic, creative, never the same sunrise. What
Exactly.
a
It's
way to start the day.
it's never the same. And
Mhm.
again, Ayurveda is all about the more we can take our cues from Mother Nature and just pay
Mhm.
attention. I mean, we all know this in Ignite, right? Because we spend so much
Mhm.
time outside and we love being outside. But if we can, which is, it helps our immune system. It just keeps us more in tune to the seasons. Our body clocks were meant to be in rhythm with Mother Nature. That's
Mhm.
how we were
Mhm.
designed.
Totally. Okay. So, question. This is so much good information. So, I knew you're an expert in this. You just gave way more information than I knew that you even had. I mean, you could teach a whole college course on this.
Oh, there's so
And I
much to
know
learn.
you have a
So much
lot
more to
more.
learn.
So, given that this is a very ginormous topic, and I'm going to look at my notes here. It's a study of life. Ayurveda, this is what you told me, is the study of life, right?
Knowledge of life, yes.
Knowledge of life. So, I mean, it's vast and never ending. It's infinite. So, to really boil it down, what what would you say for somebody who has heard this for the first time, or for somebody who has not heard this for the first time and it just would really love to get back in sync and in rhythm with a more holistic way of living, a Ayurveda lifestyle? What are the top three recommendations you would give them?
So again, it doesn't have to be real complicated. A lot of this we know, but it's just incorporating it and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
One, um, shop at the farmer's market, eat what's in season. We
Yeah.
know that, but do we really do it? We get caught up in all this other fancy stuff out there. But, you don't have to be a vegetarian, but eating close to the earth, things that come up in season, good for our microbiomes. We know that. But that's just a common sense, really great approach. And then I would say take a dosha quiz, and we could put that up in, if you have notes that we can post it in. So there's all kinds of dosha quizzes. One of my favorite is from the Chopra Center, and you can take it, and it's fun. Like people like to find out their Enneagram. Well, it's fun to know what your dosha is like. Now, I meet people and I kind of can guess what they are, and I do it with my St. Ed students. So it's a fun game to kind of figure out. And then if you're still curious, you can be like, oh, okay. And there's lots of information and knowledge out there, like, okay, here's what's best for pittas. Like I've got a strong pitta personality. So in the summertime, for me to eat a lot of hot, spicy foods is really not in my best interest. I can get,
because you're already hot and fiery.
already have a lot of pitta. Yep. And then we're like fueling with all this hot sauce, like Texans like to do. Well, no wonder we get more fiery, right? And so
Totally. Oh my gosh. Fascinating.
so if you're curious, I'd say take the dosha quiz. And I think it's really fascinating. You just learn more about yourself. And then, the simple things like sleep, looking at your sleep, looking at your digestion, your circulation and elimination. And if any of those areas aren't right, I'd say work at getting them, more in balance. And you can do that by finding out what your predominant dosha is and what best serves you.
And when I typically struggle in that department, it's when I am going nonstop, especially with travel, and I get very out, my rhythm changes. And I know all of us kind of experience that too, but it is very telling. And instead of, even when I travel, if I would just keep a semblance of routine, like my same kind of things, instead of starting from scratch or just kind of going crazy for during a travel, just not sticking with any of my routine, but just I'm amazed at how the body really loves rhythm and routine. And that's not at all to say that we can't stray and kind of go crazy sometimes, but man, my body benefits so much more when I will stay in a routine and rhythm.
Well, and I always say,
Even while traveling.
Be aware of your grounding, what grounds you, your grounding practices. So Nisa, I would venture a guess that you have some Vata in you, a fair amount. And so really important, especially when people travel, is once they arrive to have some grounding practices. Like if you are comfortable doing sun salutations in your room, just go through a couple sun salutations to ground you. Or, you might, whatever you do as a morning routine, maybe at home, be sure and do that even when you're traveling, because that can help ground you. Vatas in particular need those grounding practices. Otherwise, they're just flitting and they're feeling like they're kind of, they're fueled by air and ether. So they need the earthiness and the groundingness of connecting.
I really feel like you just described me. I thought I was a pitta.
Well, I have a feeling that you might be some Pitta Vata.
Okay. Yeah, your wisdom is timely because I leave very early in the morning to head to San Diego for our annual Renew Your retreat. And normally I just hit the ground running like the Tasmanian devil. And so you have reminded me to just do a little, doesn't mean it's an hour's worth, just a little bit of time grounding myself, centering myself, breathing instead of just rushing into the next thing, because that is what I do.
So you asked for 3 suggestions, and I think one, and a lot of our listeners, Ignite Women, know about alternate nostril breathing. And Nisa, you know how to do it, but to me, that is a really grounding practice. It's very centering. It balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, right? So we do a lot of breathing exercises that relax us and bring us into rest state as opposed to arousal. But the great thing about alternate nostril breathing, Nadi Shodhana, is that it balances both nervous systems, sympathetic with parasympathetic, and it can be really centering and really grounding. It works for me great. Like I can do it while I'm driving. I don't close my eyes and use my fingers. I just can do it in and out of each nostril, and even driving, it'll like ground me. So that would
okay. So I want you to show everybody that, since if you can show that, but I also, can you explain to everybody, tell tell us the difference between the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and what in our very busy world where we typically stay, and how we need to dial back a little bit.
So we've got our two nervous systems. The sympathetic is your get up and go, your brain power, your doer. And we spend a lot of time in that state. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. And that's, the calming one. And we don't spend near enough time there. Now, the problem is we spend so much time aroused, right? Because we're constantly stimulated. Our adrenals are constantly stimulated. Every time we get a bling on our phone, we've got an arousal. We're in sympathetic mode. So we spend way too much time there, and it's hard to downregulate. It's hard to do that quickly or even know how to. So the thing that Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, does, it literally balances the two sides. So it's simply done by, I always like to just start with the two fingers on the third eye, which is your seat of intuition, your ajna chakra, and it's kind of the commander that lines up with all the chakras. So it's just a simple resting of the two fingers at the bridge of the nose. And then you alternately use your ring finger and thumb to close off your nasal passages. So we can simply go through just a couple rounds. We take a normal breath in through the nose and exhale either through the nose or the mouth, whatever feels best. And then you're going to close off your left nostril with your ring fingers. You breathe in through the right nostril. You pause at the top and hold it. And then closing off the right, exhaling through the left nostril. And then inhaling through the left nostril. Pause, hold it at the top. Closing off the left and exhaling through the right. And then inhaling through the right. Pause at the top. Exhale left. Inhale left. Pause. And exhale right. So I like to do this with my eyes closed. It's nice to go through about 7 or 8 rounds of it. And at the end, you can just kind of see, not only do you tend to have a little more clarity and feel clear-headed, I just always feel just kind of centered, I guess I would say. So that is kind of my hands down favorite. There's all kinds of wonderful breathing exercises. And you get pretty good after a while where you can literally breathe in your right and out your left without even having to plug them. But I think it's definitely helpful to close them off.
That is impressive that you can drive. You're a woman of many talents.
What a feat.
Well, and I will just say, in doing that with you, I do love to close my eyes in breathing exercises, because if not, it's really easy for me to be distracted. Mm-hmm. And that did feel so good and calming. And when I will remember to breathe, it just feels so good. But to inhale through my nose and exhale through my nose feels so cleansing and centering. And so if somebody is cloggy, right, has allergies, a cold, breathing in and out through your mouth is also okay.
No doubt about it. And you want to ideally kind of blow your nose beforehand, or try and clear your nostrils, because I could go on and on. That could be a podcast in itself about breathing, exhaling through the nose, how important that is and how good that is to learn that. But if you can, try and, use a nasal spray before maybe, or blow your nose. And ideally you want both your nasal passages open, but I realize they're not always open. So definitely breathing.
Or a neti pot. We know that word.
Neti pot.
Okay, so we will get all these notes on the blog post. We'll get that, the dosha quiz test, and any other information or websites that you recommend, we'll link on the blog post. But you recommended eating with the seasons, so foods that are in season, eat those, get familiar with your doshas, and just rest. And you said breathe. Am I missing something? Did I
take the dosha quiz to figure it out, and then look at your digestion, circulation, elimination? if any of those are out of whack, work at getting it back in balance. I mean, gut health, we take all these probiotics,
Mhm.
if we really paid attention to our doshas, I mean, like vatas, when you go out of balance, oh my gosh, it goes right to the stomach. So, knowing that, it could be a stress response. You might not need a probiotic. I mean, I'm sure, they're always good and it's a good safeguard, but it's really understanding your individual constitution. And through your dosha quiz, you can kind of figure that out.
Well, it also, if we're being more mindful and eating with the season, just automatically we're going to eat better.
That's right. That's right. And no, it's kind of fun because, we don't have those heavy soups. We would want those heavy soups in the summer. We wouldn't want it, but allow yourself to really enjoy kind of the heavier foods, the things that you don't, always eat. Maybe a pasta dish. I've been craving good Italian. Now that's kind of
Me
unusual for me, but
too.
oh man, just a good old red sauce and pasta. Bring it on.
That's so funny you say that. And I have recognized this in my body. I'm like, I think I've kind of put on some winter weight, which I do every winter, just kind of put on a couple extra pounds. And I don't care because, summer will come, the busier season and whatever. I feel great. But I noticed that I made this pasta dish for our family, and I typically don't make pasta because I love it, and it's just like so many carbohydrates. So I try to not make super heavy carb meals for our family. And who was the one who just like, I mean, I was going down on that meal. So that's why it's the season.
It is. I've been the same way. I've been craving like really good Italian. And
Oh,
so I
okay.
was going to make it the other night. I'm like, I just want to go out and get it.
Oh my God. Okay. That explains it. This is so revealing. Thank you for helping me recognize why I cannot control myself when it comes to pasta.
We're actually hungrier
Okay.
in the winter. We're hungrier in the
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
It
It makes
does.
perfect sense. Well, okay. So fantastic information, Amy. That with all of your knowledge that you were able to really pare it down the way you did and dial it down so that we could fully understand and grasp and concept what we need or understand and conceptualize what we need to know on a level 1 basis. We'll go level 2 another time. But right now, this is a really good start, especially while we're all, this is only, what is it, January the 16th. I should know it's Durant's 13th birthday. But especially as we're all considering what do we want this year to look like, this is a great time to reflect and just factor in all of these great concepts that Amy gave us and implement those as we develop or create our holistic, healthy 2024. So, Amy, are you ready for rapid fire?
Sure. Bring it on.
Okay, yay, this is so fun. All right. And it's an unfair question to ask you what your favorite quote is. That's why when I sent Amy the questions, I put now because Amy is
That was so
like
funny. I saw that.
a quote junkie. And there's so many good quotes. And she sends a new quote to our Ignite community every week when she re-invites them to join her in her class. There's always a new beautiful quote. So what is your favorite quote now?
Okay, because you're right. I have a ton of favorites, but honestly, this has been my favorite for probably the last 3 years, and I think it will remain for the rest of my life, my favorite quote. And that is this. It's really simple, but in the end, the only thing that really matters is how well did you live, how well did you love, and how well did you learn to let go?
That is beautiful. Do you know who the quotist is? Or
You
was
know
that
what?
unknown?
I have to go back because I have it on a vision board from 3 years ago, and I can't even remember where I first saw it, Nisa, but it was about 3 years
Mhm.
ago, and I need to credit the person who came up with it because it was not me. And wow, that quote has taken on so many layers for me,
Mhm.
letting go of control and expectations, letting go of, thinking you know how things work, letting go
Mhm.
of, just there's so much to let go of.
Mhm.
And the longer I live, the more I realize I need to let go of stuff. So it's become really rich for me.
Well, that will be a quick and easy Google search on our end, so no big deal. You don't need to look that up. I'll let you know when I find out who the author is of that quote. But that is perfect and doesn't surprise me that that's your favorite because that is so you. And so, your second question, what is your favorite or what book are you reading now? Not what is your favorite book, but what book are you reading now?
So, Nisa, I'm kind of like you. I never read just one. I've got a couple go, and I wish I could just concentrate on one, but I've got a couple going. So I got a bunch of good ones for Christmas. But right now I'm reading Maria Shriver's book, I've Been Thinking. I really love. She's so positive, and I love her outlook on life. And then Eat to Beat Disease is another book that I
Mm.
found actually through her website by Dr. William Lee, Li, and that's really good. And then I've got just some spiritual books I'm reading, but those are my two I'm kind of into.
Yeah, I got it. You're a bouncer arounder like me. I'm a
I am.
Okay, I know that you and Steve have enjoyed many a concerts in your life. So this is an unfair question to ask you, but I have to ask you because you've been to so many good ones. What's your best concert, favorite concert you've ever been to?
So, Nisa, when I saw that question, I laughed because it comes to mind, but it's so true. My favorite was when I almost didn't go because I thought I was going to break up with my boyfriend from high school, but it was Paul McCartney, Wings Over America. And this was the first time that Paul McCartney came and performed in concert after splitting up with the Beatles. It was huge. He did this, across America. He did a world tour and he came to America. And so I got to see him in Chicago with my boyfriend. And I thought I almost didn't go because we were going to break up. And it was wonderful. So at the
Well,
time it was
obviously
just,
you did break up. You married up,
yep,
but I
yep.
just didn't. Okay, all serious. That had to have been an amazing concert. Wow. But I thought you were going to say Earth, Wind, and Fire because I know you've seen them several times, haven't you?
Nisa, I've seen them so many times. And the last time I saw them here at the Moody Amphitheater, it was incredible because to see them come full circle and just their message and what they represent, I am so proud of those guys. I love them. Earth, Wind,
Oh, awesome.
always.
All right. You are the queen of self-care. So
Mm.
what's your favorite form of self-care?
So these days, my definitely most effective and favorite self-care is I've been doing this about the last 2 years, and it is like a non-negotiable for me. So I get up in the morning, and if I have to get up a little earlier, I do, but normally it's always 6 a.m. I tend to rise, and I come light a candle. I've got my book of inspiration I read first. I don't look at the phone, don't allow myself, I don't even sleep with the
Mhm.
phone by my bed. So I read my inspiration and I journal every morning. And that is like such a game changer for me. It sets the tone of the day. I always, three things I'm grateful for. I kind of recap the day and I do a little free writing, but that has been the most grounding practice I do. And it totally centers me. And for sure, the gratitude practice. I always tell myself they have to be three different things. They can't be the same thing. And I try
Mhm.
and, they can be so small. They can be just like, that my tea's the right temperature.
Grateful that you have a warm house during a cold winter day. I mean, that's not
Exactly.
a small thing. That's a big thing. It can be one of those things we overlook because
Yep,
we're so blessed and we have it.
exactly.
Um, you've been doing that for a while.
I have, but I've been very, very diligent the last 2 years because I spent so many years, Nisa, getting up, slamming a cup of tea down, running out the door to exercise or get on with the day. And I just realized that set the tone for my day. And so now when I really am mindful and set it in a very intentional way, it definitely affects my whole day.
So let me ask you, do you try to go to bed at the same time every night?
I do. I didn't always do that. And it
Mhm.
actually took a car accident for me to realize that I needed more sleep. And that was back when I was in a bad car accident a couple decades ago. And I realized, wow, sleep is a lot more important than I realized. So I try and go to bed between 10:30 and get up at 6. That's
Mhm.
pretty consistent.
Well, and I just want to preface, and I do believe there is merit to going to bed at the same time and rising at the same time. I think back to rhythm and routine. It's really good for us. That being said, not all seasons of life
Can we do
allow
that?
for that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
I feel like we've just kind of entered into a season, kids are 13 now and 10, like their activities will keep us up late sometimes, but for the most part, bedtime is easy. It wasn't that way too many years ago, where every night, every day was a different day. So if you're a young mom or you're just not in a stable season of life, do give yourself grace.
For sure. And you have to, because teenagers come alive late at night, and try and turn them off is another thing. And I remember that well. So I wasn't always there, and it wasn't always easy. So we do just have to give ourselves grace.
So then, in other words, you're telling me to enjoy this while it lasts, because as they
Exactly.
yeah, totally. All
It
right.
won't
I
be
love it.
forever.
Yes. And that's another part of just relinquishing control, right? Is recognizing that every season there is an ebb and flow to life all the time, and just do the best that we can do, ride the wave and settle in where you can settle in, and just be patient.
Exactly right, Nisa. There's seasons to
Okay.
everything.
Yes. And I will say that is I've just absorbed so much wisdom from this Ignite community for so long. And that is one of the things that I have learned from you guys, because so many of you were a season of life ahead of me. And that was one of the pieces of wisdom that I didn't even know what a season of life was when I started Ignite, but I soon learned it, because many of you were transitioning from season of life where you had children at home to an empty nester season of life, to a caretaker because of your aging parent season of life, to you're marrying your children season of life, to grandchildren season of life, so I'm really grateful to have gotten to see how beautifully our Ignite community has transitioned and transitions from one season of life to another. And I will tell you, when you have these people in your life, it makes transitioning from one season of life to the other so much easier, because you know that it's normal and you're not the only one who's ever experienced it.
Agreed.
Okay. What yoga pose should we do if you could choose? I know this is a hard question. I'm sorry to ask you this very difficult question, but if we could do one yoga pose every single day, what would it be
So,
and
Nisa,
why?
my pick, I feel like I'm on a game show. My pick is going to be not, not one that we do in other classes. So, like, I could say down dog or bridge,
Mm-hmm.
which I love all those, or locust pose. I think all those are super important to do on a regular basis, but you do those in other Ignite classes. So, I'm going to say one we don't do a lot, and that is a yogi squat. And it is so good for us.
That's not chair pose, right?
That's not chair pose. So yogi squat is literally coming down, and if you have like tight shins, or I'm sorry, calves or Achilles, you can actually hold on to a chair leg. So it's coming down, just like you see, like, in Asian cultures when they go to the bathroom, they squat, right? And we don't do that.
Almost like a sumo squat.
So it's coming down like heels together, feet out, and your feet can be apart.
Oh.
It's coming all the way down into a deep squat, rooting your tailbone down, bringing hands, arms go
Mm-hmm.
inside the legs. So you're pressing your legs open. So you're getting your hips open. You're lengthening your spine, rooting your tailbone down. It feels great for the low back. It's a great low back release, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're lifting up. So you're not dumping down, but you're lifting your chest. And it's so good for our posture. It's also, I mean, why do they do it in Asian cultures all the time? They can get up and down off the floor so easily. But a yogi squat is super important to keep us agile and mobile, and, hips open, low back release, good for our posture. And then the best way I know to come out of it is grabbing your yoga mat or whatever, something in front of you, or maybe your table leg, and to take the pressure off the knees, you lean forward and then come up, as opposed to just, it can be hard on the knees just to pull on
Mm-hmm.
up. But, coming deep down where you're literally, your tailbone is towards the ground. And so for a lot of people, they're not really stretched out in the back of the Achilles. So you need to like come onto your heels, go on a yoga mat or a blanket or something, so they can root down.
Yes. And so what Amy has taught us to do is to roll a yoga mat up or a towel and place it underneath the heels. And then
Right.
you can push your heels down into that. That way your feet are flat and nothing is lifting, but it's a supported lift. And if we will think about and we'll put an example of this on the blog post of what this looks like. But if you think about a sumo wrestler, they're kind of in that position,
Yeah, they're
but
low.
they're low, but like they're wide, they're upright, but I don't think what they are, their elbows are not into their knees.
Right.
But I love that pose, and I forget about that one. And it was even requested in my at-home class, like, could we do more of these when we stretch at the end, because I need it so bad. So thank you for that reminder.
Well, Nisa, I actually forget to do it a lot of times in my class, and I'm going to start doing it more because it really is a great pose. And when I do it every day, which I tend to do on my own, I feel a lot, it kind of, if anything's feeling tweaky, I do that pose, and it kind of gets me everything aligned. It's good for your pelvis. Great to align your
Thank
pelvis.
you for that reminder. Okay, I'm going to start doing it. I could really benefit from that, especially as in my posture right now. I'm slouching. You would be so disappointed in me. Let me sit up a little taller. Okay. What's something most people don't know about you?
Probably something that I guess a lot of the Ignite community wouldn't know about me is really what brought me to Austin was I was the first female sales rep for SC Johnson, otherwise known as Johnson Wax, out of Racine, Wisconsin. And so I got a job with them, and there was this older gentleman retiring after 35 years, and in comes this girl from, I wasn't very old, and I moved to Austin, and I had this territory, and it was all with good old boys, and everybody in my territory was guys. So it was quite an awakening, but I loved it. They were really, really, they were gentlemen, and it was great. And that was kind of my introduction to Austin and the hill country and the surrounding area.
And what year was that?
So that would have been in 1982.
And this was after you
college.
and Steve were married.
Right. This was after college, and it was, yes, Steve and I were married.
Okay. Oh, I'm so grateful that they brought you to Austin, Texas.
Me too. It was kind of while we were dating, it happened.
Oh, okay. Gosh, see, I feel like I know you really well, and that's a detail I often forget because I knew about that, but I would never, if somebody said, well, tell me about Amy Younkman and how she got to Austin, that would not be something that I would remember. So thank you.
I sold Raid insecticide and built displays and went around and did Blitz Week in the hill country with the good old boys.
Oh, I love it. My, oh my, how your life has evolved, your profession. Right? But I love that was how you started. That's awesome. Okay, last thing. What are you most looking forward to at this moment?
I'm really looking forward. We just booked a trip to Portugal, a backroads bike trip. So we're going with some friends, and Steve and I are planning on that because we love to ride bikes, and we haven't been in a while. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
And so Portugal, have you been before?
I've never been to Portugal. We've been to Spain, but never Portugal. So it'll be the first part of June we're going to go.
Well, that just sounds wonderful. That is definitely a nice little carrot to have dangled out in front of you.
I know.
To keep your sights on.
That's right. Keep me cycling,
well,
which I love.
That's right. Well, I'm so happy for you that you have that to look forward to. And I can't thank you enough for just being such a great resource for us and such a beautiful reminder of just what taking care of us looks like, and that we all can live according to the seasons. And it doesn't mean we have to completely transition our life, but we can just do little things that will make us healthier. And that's really the key. But just thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your passion on this topic. And this will be one of many podcasts because Amy is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm just going to keep using this word, passionate. I've described our Ignite team like that. Oh my gosh, you guys all just ooze with so much passion. There's so much to learn from y'all. And I feel like I'm just the most blessed of them all to get to work with you and live life together and learn from you. So thank you. So now thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with this Power of We family. And Amy, thank you.
You're welcome, Nisa. I love being a part of it. It's a really inspiring group of women. You're at the helm, and I love how you continue to grow and learn and inspire us. So I'm proud to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Right back at you. Okay. Well, to be continued.
Okay. Take
Bye.
care. Thank you, friend.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Power of We podcast. And if you happen to be in Austin, we would love for you to join our fitness community. But if not, I would love for you to join me and our at-home fitness community. Most importantly, thank you for being part of the Power of We family.